Welcome to Freed on Business. He grew up in South Florida, has been in business here since the early 90s, and has closed over $3 billion in deals. He's seen it all. He always has an opinion, and he's always ready to share it. Informed, entertaining, and connected, he has his finger on the pulse of South Florida's business community. He's Jim Freed, and this is Freed on Business.
Hey everybody, we've got a tremendous show for you on Freed on Business. We're going to be looking at Miami's position in the international marketplace for cities and what makes a city a global destination, and when do you consider to be a global city that's going to have a lasting impact. We've got a tremendous guest today, Professor Alejandro Portes, who's works out of the University of Miami and is also a professor at Princeton. He'll be up at Princeton today calling in. I want to thank our sponsors for the last, over a decade. Gosh, got to be 12 or 13 years now. Warren Henry Automotive. We want to thank our friends at Warren Henry. Always the best price, always the best service, always Warren Henry. Thank you to Warren, Eric, Larry, and the rest of the team at Warren Henry. And I want to thank Lisa Paley for helping us meet Alejandro. And with that, Mr. Mendoza, where is Alejandro? There he is. Hey, Alejandro, how are you? How is it up in Jersey today?
Greetings. It's rainy and cloudy and gray, and a good place to miss Miami.
Yes, I was going to say, so that's a real good reason, one of the reasons why Miami is such a global city. I always got a kick out of the fact that it's really easy to tell why Miami would become a global city. If you look at that flat hemispheric map that they post, when you look at that, the place that's in the exact center of that is the city of Miami. And I've always compared Miami today to New York or Hong Kong or London back in the day by being a center of commerce. But what's the primary factors that make a city a global city? And then we'll talk about where Miami and some of its compatriots like Dubai and Singapore fit in on that.
There you go. Well, I think that the concept of global city had been bandied around a great deal, but there is a tight scholarly scientific definition of what what global city is, dating back to a book by a Columbia professor by the name of Saskia Sassen that wrote a book called Global Cities back in the early 90s. And what she made clear, her insight was that in the present capitalist world economy, which is the only world economy we have, the processes of deindustrialization, that is, manufacturing, can be done anywhere in the world, or marketing, that is, or selling, can be done anywhere in the world. But while those things become more globalized, the process of coordination of those activities, the financial, banking, the financial and corporate coordination of activities that are distributed worldwide, cannot be decentralized. They are not. They tend to be centralized in places where the key players, key corporate players, bankers, law firms, and so on, concentrate, get together, talk to each other, and make the decisions that affect the rest of the world. These are the global cities. And in the original formulation by Sassen, she identified just three that played that key role in the world economy: New York, London, and Tokyo. And she dedicated great chapters to each of them in great detail, showing how, for example, they were industrial cities, but they are not industrial cities anymore. New York produces nothing. What it produces are derivatives. It produces financial products that are then sold all over the world. It produces loans for third world countries. It produces all kinds of banking arrangements. That's what New York produces: services to the economy and so on. And that's one of the key factors that makes it a global city. The other one, both New York and London and Tokyo as well, is that they become real estate hubs. That is, there were at the time of that book, 1990, clearly a lot of demand for office space and apartments, etc., in these cities because everybody wanted to be in them. That is because precisely they were considered centers of the world. So the real estate and construction industry went hand in hand with banking and finance and corporate headquarters to develop what New York is today, not an industrial town, and a service town, an artistic town, and so on. So that was the original insight. And I think I will stop there too, because I simply have answered your question about what makes a global city global. Is a city that, just to summarize, is a city that is somehow above the country in which it is in. That is, it does more than just being an administrator or whatever, or the capital of a particular country, Brazil, Argentina, and I say New York is above. You have that sense that New York is above the United States because it has a global projection that goes beyond that, just as London did before.
Well, it sounds like you just described Miami, and I'd like to ask you to hold on a second because we now have your co-author, Ariel, on the line. Ariel leads the University of Pittsburgh's Global Engagement and Strategy as the Vice Chancellor for Global Affairs, and we all know Pitt's a powerhouse in research, particularly in health sciences and international studies. Welcome to the show, Ariel.
Hi, Jim. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We were just talking about what makes a city a global city, and Alejandro was talking about how the fact that it kind of separates itself from the rest of the country and projects on the national stage. And without a doubt, Miami's there. Miami's a service economy. Miami basically builds condos and shopping centers for people to come here and spend money and bring their money into what I call their little safe deposit boxes, which they then rent to people that can't afford to buy them that live here locally. So where are we in the evolution? For many, many years, they've called Miami the capital of Latin America. I know that you guys like to compare Miami to, let's say, Dubai and to Singapore. I guess to a lesser extent, cities like Sao Paulo, Brazil would want to aspire, but aren't necessarily there. Is Miami a global city today? If it is, when did we turn the corner and become one? If not, what do we need to do to get there?
Let me take that one, Ariel, and then perhaps you can complement.
Go ahead.
It used to be for many years that the movers and shakers in Miami look at that map that you mentioned, so the location of the city is it. But of course, it has to be the capital of the Americas. It's located in the right place between the hemispheres and so on. But they did nothing about it. Nothing. It was just pure talk. Basically, the orientation of Miami in the 40s and 50s was as a winter resort for Northerners, for people coming from New York, Boston, and so on. That was what the city was like. It was a winter resort. In the summer, it was dead. So it took a series of factors that to transform the geographic location into that kind of reality. And and I think that is interestingly on that account the early waves of Cuban exiles that were composed, especially the bankers who came, like Felix Rayler and
Felix Rayler. Dr. Rayler is my wife's uncle. I've met him. And my wife represents a lot of what you're talking about with I call them the Jubins that came here. And I'm also very friendly with the family of Mel Greenberg. And Greenberg Traurig basically built itself on the fact that it would address the Cuban immigrant society that some of the white shoe law firms didn't address. And I'll throw one last name out there for my friend Danny Holtz. And that's, of course, Abel Holtz and his Capital Bank.
Abel Holtz, of course, and then you have Luis Botifol and a number of others, and they did two things. I'll stop there so that Gabrielle can jump in. They saw the position of Miami in the hemisphere, and they did what had not been done. They went to Latin America to talk to the bankers, to talk to the money people, and said, instead of going to New York to speak with bankers that do not speak a word of Spanish and go to in cold weather, come to Miami. It's warm. You can do business in your language. It's safe because it's the American judicial system, and you can throw in a vacation as much. So that gradually, that's how that was a movement that that began the process of banking concentration that we see today, that we see today taking form in Brickell.
I can't thank you enough for bringing up Dr. Ryler's name. My wife had told me from the day that I met her that his main job at, I guess it was NCNB, I forget what the bank is, where he's Pan American Bank. And he would go down to Latin America. He was the first one. He would go down there to solicit them and bring them all back up here. And he built Pan American Bank, which was then absorbed, I guess, by NCNB, which was then absorbed by another one. And he basically founded the entire international banking industry. So kudos to Dr. Ryler. My wife is going to love listening to this.
Yeah, the Florida International Banking Association, FIBA. Which is crucial, was founded by Ryler and the other bankers, Luis Botifol and the other colleagues. And FIBA was very important in having the state of Florida pass laws that allow foreign banks to set up offices in Florida.
That's the EDGE Act? The EDGE Act?
No, the EDGE Act came before, and that allowed American banks to set up their foreign activities here. But after the EDGE Act, Florida, in order to compete, passed a law that allowed foreign banks to establish major offices. That's when Israeli banks and Brazilian banks started coming, and now you see the concentration there in Brickell.
I want to let Ariel comment on all this. Then we're going to take a quick break. This is tremendous. I've got to go grab my wife. Well, I'll just give her the tape. But anyway, Ariel, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on this. And then I'd like to talk about the global impact of some of the other players that are trying to now change the dynamic here. First, we had Russia. Now we have China. So there's all kinds of dynamics happening right here. And if we don't have enough time today, I'm going to ask you guys back. But Ariel, what's your thoughts on the pivotal moments of the immigration here to Miami? Because to me, I always felt that as a person living here, that the real pivot point was the Mariel boat lift.
Well, Jim, I want to emphasize two things. One, about the conversation, what Alejandro was just explaining. It's very important to highlight the fact that these immigrants realized a very important thing was that there was a major difference between the setting in the United States and Latin America, which was the rule of law, the existence of rules and regulations, and the fact that if you were to bring your money to the United States, your money would be safe. And that is a very simple, very, very simple concept, but extremely powerful. And they realized that that was the seed for something big. That's one thing. The second thing is, and we can talk more about that, is that one of the fascinating things about Miami, as we call an emerging global city, is that Miami did not produce anything. Miami never had an industry. Miami is not a tech city, aspires to be one, but it's not. Miami is a place, and you said it earlier, that produces services, and it's a hub. So it took advantage of geography, and there are cities that can take advantage of their geography, and others that cannot. But there are cities that miss that opportunity, that they don't understand that can be a very valuable asset, and Miami did that. But that's very, very important in this conversation, because we are seeing a world of cities where the traditional path of ascending to a position of global influence is not necessarily related to industrialization.
I want to hold it right there. I want to come back right after the break. I want to talk about how I've been involved with the industrial growth out west of Miami, how we've seen the exports go from trucks to software, and the evolution of Miami as a global city. Oh, wow. These are great guests. I got a feeling that more than one show is going to come out of this. Again, I want to thank Lisa Paley for bringing Ariel and Alejandro to the show. And I want to thank Mr. Mendoza for taking it away. No, this is a tremendous show. Thank you to Mr. Mendoza. I don't know if you did that consciously, but he started the break out with the Freedom Tower lit up at the night skyline. I've got more questions to ask these two guys than I have time to get answers for, so we're definitely going to have to ask them back. Thanks again to Lisa Paley. I want to thank also our friends at Warren Henry. We know that they export a lot of cars. I'm sure that they're very involved with Miami being a global city as well. I want to thank our friends for well over a decade, Larry, Eric, Warren, Ismet, Maytal, all of our friends at Geo, Jack. I love them all over at Warren Henry. They treat my family like their family, and it's a wonderful thing. When you're looking to buy or lease a car, we all know you want to get every advantage that you can. That's why you have to check out our friends at Warren Henry. Land Rover, Range Rover, Infiniti, Jaguar, and now Lincoln up at 151st and Biscayne and Gainesville. They sell Audis. Down in the Key West store, they've got all of the great name brands. They got a new store down in South Dade that sells Land Rover and Range Rover. All great cars, and they all come with the Warren Henry Advantage. Of course, you get a free loaner car if you need one to leave it for service. They'll help you with all kinds of things. If your car gets scratched on the rims, they help. They can help buff that out. They can replace your keys, which are really expensive computerized access points at this juncture in technology. Of course, they'll guarantee you the best price on your trade-in, the best price on your new car, the best price on your leased car. They'll give you 3 days to make sure you like your car. If you don't, you can return it. Of course, if you ship it to Latin America, that probably goes out the window. So join me, my mom, my beautiful wife, Vivian, lots and lots of my friends and clients. We're all members of the Warren Henry family. You should be too. Always the best price, always the best service, always Warren Henry. God, my brain just can't stop rocking. I've got such great guests today between Ariel and Alejandro. I think I could talk to them for hours and hours and hours. I've lived the stuff that they're talking about. You heard them talk about my wife's uncle as being one of the preeminent people in this entire conversion. So high five to Dr. Ryler and FIBA for getting all this together. And realize and remember, reach out to me, DM me. I do business with families and institutions from all over the world. I've got clients from Argentina, Brazil, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Europe. We're doing deals all over the world with them on our new tokenization platform. It's really accepted in Latin America. It's working its way through here to the United States. And my partner and I will talk about that again in a couple of weeks about what's been going on as we get our agreements set with the broker dealers and start helping our clients create tokens, which will help them trade their real estate with great liquidity all across the world, depending on the way their smart contract is written. So I have families, high net worth families locally, overseas. I have institutions I work with from all across the world. I work with lots of real estate operating companies. Now, even the Canadian government has reached out to me to ask me to help them with their prop tech. I'm a fintech guy. I've got my platform that's the token platform that's fintech, but I've got all kinds of creative solutions as we move through this constrained capital environment that we're in now. I know people that are actively deploying capital at all levels of the capital stack and at all the different interest rate points. Reach out to me. Remember, my personal brand is that I self-actualize by helping other people achieve their dreams and goals. I do that by helping them identify and then solving their problems, which brings them peace of mind. And remember, as always, whenever you call me, it's always all about you.
Welcome back to Freed on Business. Connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Jim Freed or at Freed on Business. and on Instagram at JimFreed1. Now, back to your host, Jim Freed.
Got a tremendous panel today. I want to thank Lisa Paley for helping us arrange this. I'm going to hope that there become regular guests to talk about international business on the show. We've got Ariel Armani. He leads the University of Pittsburgh's Global Engagement and Strategy as the Vice Chancellor for Global Affairs. I guess you're airmailing it in from Pittsburgh today. And then we've got Alejandro Portes. He's up at Princeton today. You know, I was going to go to Princeton, but I ended up going to the University of Florida instead. Studied real estate. Glad I did. But I want to go back to something that happened right when we went into the break. Mr. Mendoza on the out showed us a picture of the Freedom Tower. I think that's very appropriate for today because this is a city and a country built on immigrants. I don't want to get into the micro discussion about the different political ways that they're using immigrants to break up our country, but I do want to talk about the influence that the immigrants have had on helping to make Miami an international city. I think Alejandro was saying how all of the business people that Dr. Reiler was bringing up here from Latin America, one of the pitches was you can come here, live here, be free here, have everything be safe, but still speaking your native language. What a unique thing that was in the late 80s when it all started.
It was it was not in the late 80s, actually. It started in the 70s when these bankers were starting to gain positions at the little banks in Miami, like Pan American, Ocean, and others, and they started going to Latin America and so on. But what they did, aside from persuading people in Latin America to bring their business here, their money, is that they converted the business center in Miami into truly cosmopolitan. It was bilingual. That is, in Miami, you can speak English and Spanish indistinctly anywhere, including Brickell. There are bankers coming from everywhere. So that becomes the first step of a city that was just a winter resort into becoming increasingly cosmopolitan in the area of business, and that was very important. Aside from putting their money into the banks, gradually, wealthy people in Latin America began to see Miami as a place to not only to save their money, but to have another place to be, to have a condominium, a luxury condominium, and so on. And they started buying things. So the incredible skyline that you see in Miami and Miami Beach of condominium towers, those were not for sale to the locals. There was not enough market in Miami itself to sell those buildings. Those were for sale the world over, and primarily in the hemisphere, which was Miami's center, throughout the countries in Latin America and so on. And more recently, of course, Russians and others have come to build, to buy condominiums in Sunny Isles. But that international projection, that is the second leg of the Miami economy as an emerging global. One is banking and finance, and the other is real estate and construction. And the third, of course, is tourism.
Well, you forget agriculture too, but we have within the context of real estate and development, that's my game. And I have friends at ISG that have gone all over the world to sell condos. Edgardo Di Fortuna has been on the show, who sells, all Latin American, all around the world. We've had relationships with the Cervera folks also. So there's a handful of very key people that have helped to internationalize Miami. But I want to talk a little bit about the evolution, because we're talking about condos, but in reality, it started with just really infrastructure-based exports like trucks and cars and bulldozers. And then now it's evolved to, then it became intellectual property and services, and now it's fintech even. Ariel, can you talk a little bit about the evolution of our economy and how that helped to attract people the way it's also attracting people in places like Singapore and Dubai, which you kind of favorably compare Miami to in your book?
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's start, with your comment on exports. So one of the very, very important aspects of the evolution of Miami was the development of infrastructure to transform the city as a hub for trade. So that developing the port of Miami as a port with all the facilities to facilitate international trade was absolutely crucial. The other element was the development of the airport of Miami. You want millions of people going through your city, of course, to have the city as destination, but also to transform that as a hub. Today, if two business people from Latin America or in different countries want to hold a meeting, it is very likely that they will choose Miami and not one of their countries or a third country in Latin America. It's easier to fly to Miami. It's very likely that there will be a non-stop flight. So this transformation in infrastructure was absolutely crucial. The other element that I wanted to highlight, you talked about that you're in fintech. Fintech has become extremely important, and it is only going to continue growing in terms of the potential that we have, in the city. The other thing that I wanted to mention, which is an intangible, but it's very important, and I like very much when you were talking about your business, that you say we help you reach your dreams and goals. That's a perfect summary for what Miami is. That it's a city of aspirations, and we should not forget about that. We talk a lot in our book about brands. The branding of cities in the world today is absolutely crucial. Later, we can talk more about some recent developments. A big one is Messi and the Inter Miami. But we need to consider that in addition to the infrastructure that is being built in terms of trade, transportation, in addition to the services, we have the very important element of building a brand. And in that sense, the evolution of Miami in terms of its brand has been fascinating.
You mentioned Messi, and I know you're Argentinian, so I give you a pass on that. But the real interesting subplot there is that when you talk about infrastructure and Miami exporting infrastructure and capabilities to Latin America, one of the names that comes to mind is the Cuban immigrant and head of the Cuban National Foundation, the original Jorge Mas Canosa. And now who's the owner of the soccer team? And it's Jorge Mas. So I think that it's incredibly important to talk about the multi-generational aspects of this. We had Capital Bank, we had Abel Holtz, and then his son Javier became a banker down here. And it goes on and on and on, and it's only getting more and more ingrained. And I also want to point out that in New York, I'll just talk about it like in its passe for a moment, in its heyday, it was a place where all the immigrants came together. They had a safe place. They'd have their enclaves, and then from that they would expand and do great things together. That's what we see every day here in Miami. And I grew up here when it was the white shoes guys from New York and Chicago coming for vacation, which that everybody says, oh my gosh, what's going on now with the growth of the tech companies in Miami? This is a pipeline that's always existed. It just got overwhelmed by the Latin American immigration. Now they're all coming together along with the Russians, the Western Europeans. They're all here. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with Alejandro and Ariel. We're going to ask them more questions. But one of the things I really want to focus on in the second half hour, and Alejandro, if you could stay, that'd be great. Ariel, if you could stay, that'd be great. Is I want to talk about how Miami stays on top, because the one thing that you do when you study the global connecting points, the global cities, is they ebb and flow. And I want to talk about what's going to be able to keep Miami on top longer than others have. And I think technology is going to have a lot to do with it. So we'll leave that percolating with Ariel and Alejandro, and this gives me the chance for Mr. Mendoza to shine. Wow, look at all the pictures that we have there of the safe deposit boxes for all the wealthy people from Latin America. I want to thank again Lisa Paley for bringing these tremendous guests and absolutely igniting my creativity and my visions of the future. I love these our guests, Ariel and Alejandro. Wow, they're just so wonderful. You know who else is wonderful, by the way, is our friends at Warren Henry, Larry, Eric. Of course, Warren and the rest of the team over there. Jack, high five to Jack. He's the one that gets it all done for me. They're all great people too. What does all this stuff have in common? Well, it's all about family. It's all about meeting needs and goals. It's all about treating people the way you want to be treated. That's something that's ingrained in Warren Henry. I was cleaning out some of my stuff the other day, and I realized that I had some old emails from Warren Henry, and there it was right there. It's all about you. And the emails from Warren Henry over a decade ago, it's something they stay very true to. So if you're looking to buy or lease a car, we know you want to get every advantage that you can. That's why you have to check out Warren Henry. Land Rover, Range Rover, Infiniti, Jaguar, and Lincoln up at 151st and Biscayne. I know they export a lot of cars out to Latin America. They've got a great Audi store up in Gainesville. I'm sure they sell a lot of those Audis in overseas as well. In Key West, they've got a place that sells everything, all their different cars down there. And of course, in South Dade, they've got a brand new place that sells Land Rover and Range Rover. All great cars, all with the Warren Henry advantage, the long list of services. You know them by now. Free loaner car. They'll guarantee you're getting a great price on your new car, your leased car. They'll get you great value on your trade-in. They'll give you 3 days to make sure you like your car. If you don't, you can trade it back. Nobody ever does that because they love their cars. All my friends go there. My mom goes there. My wife, they treat her like gold there. We got probably the first QX60 in the United States, thanks to our relationship with our friends at Warren Henry. So if you want to get treated like a superstar, get over to Warren Henry. And remember, always the best price, always the best service. You know this by now, always Warren Henry. Well, got another idea about something I want to ask the guys. Wow, what a great show today. We're profiling some of the things that I bring to the table. I have great international contacts. I have great local contacts. I put them all together here in Florida. We do real estate deals all over the state, all over the country, and now all over the world through my fintech platform that we'll be talking a little bit more about on a future show. Suffice it to say that we're creating tokens and doing the next wave of syndication online using the blockchain. Give me a call or DM me if you want to learn more about that. We have clients from all over the world, Latin America, Brazil, Argentina, way over on the other side of the world in New Zealand and Australia, Canada, of course, and Europe. So give me a call. We're helping people finance their transactions internationally and creating great liquidity and great safety and security because it's FINRA and SEC approved. Of course, I've got the regular stuff too, doing construction. Oh, my mom's texting me. She must be watching. Doing construction financing. My mom's calling me because we're helping her condo get a 50-year sort of recertification loan, all kinds of things, because I help people solve problems. When I solve the problems, I bring them peace of mind. And that's the most important thing you can give somebody. And remember, whenever you call me, it's always all about you.
Welcome back to Freed on Business. Connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Jim Freed or at Freed on Business, and on Instagram at Jim Freed1. Now, back to your host, Jim Freed.
What an amazing show. We have two guys that are way smarter than I am about international studies, international relations, sociology. They're just tremendous. I'm just some dumb guy doing real estate here in Miami. And I've got a podcast. This is like show, I don't know, 750. Did we lose Ariel?
No, I'm here.
There he is. Okay, high five. Somebody's got some bad background. Is that you, Mr. Mendoza? Anyway, check it out. Anyway, one of the things that we haven't talked about that I think is extraordinarily important, it was one of the first big exports of the city of Miami, is what occurred at the University of Miami in Jackson, and that's the health district. many people come in here for the health district. My good friend, Mr. Robert Finvarb has a hotel there that's done great things because of people coming and staying for their health tourism, if you will. The impact on that is extraordinarily tremendous, and I'd like to talk about that back and forth of technology. We'll start with Ariel because we always start with Alejandro. Ariel,
Yep.
what did the impact of the health district have on making this a place for people to come?
So, Jim, before I answer the question, let me mention that all this that we are discussing is explained in detail in our new book, Emerging
Thank you.
Cities. So, Emerging Global Cities is a book that we just published by Columbia University, and I really want to emphasize for the audience that. No matter what your business is, I think that this is a book that you will find extremely interesting and useful. Just check out even the chapter on Miami. It has chapters on Singapore, Dubai, and other cities. But this is a book that you can read the entire book and find it very, it's an easy read. It's a very interesting read. Or you can read parts of the book and actually quote it for your business. And I bet you that, it will help you a lot because it's a kind of argument and a kind of language that will position. You were talking about real estate, fintech, all that is absolutely crucial to understand, this way of looking at the world. And when you are talking to customers from different parts of the world, that's the kind of language that you want to use. So I wanted to emphasize that.
And I agree with you, and I apologize for not bringing that. I keep talking about Lisa Paley, and thank you to her, but I forget. And, Alejandro was telling me that there's still a couple of copies left from your event at Books and Books that are actually autographed. I've got to go over and get a copy of that. Probably over the weekend. I'm going to Coral Gables. Coral Gables is another example of the international city right up by the airport. But I did want to double back now and talk a little bit about the impact of the healthcare industry, because we did not talk about that. And I think that's an enormous driver. I've had clients from Mexico come here early on in the COVID scare and actually ask how they could get a COVID shot earlier. And COVID had a whole big impact on this, and we haven't even touched on yet. Alejandro.
Well, we do not deal at great lengths with the health sector, but certainly this is an important driver of the metropolitan economy of Miami. There are other cities that are also medical centers. That is, Pittsburgh is one,
Houston,
Baltimore, and so on. I think that the distinct advantage of Miami in that sense is precisely its cosmopolitan character. Many people can come because they can express themselves in their language, and they have doctors who speak Spanish or Portuguese and that again is this sort of the fact of the city becoming a hub of the hemisphere. The three global cities that are featured in our book have in common the fact that they are centers for a particular region of the world. If New York is global for the whole thing, Miami is global in the sense that it is in the hemisphere, a center of trade, of long distance trade, and of finance, and then culture and tourism, just like Dubai plays a similar role in the Middle East and Singapore in South Asia. And just as in passing, I want to mention that if you take a look at the June 10th issue of The Economist, the finance section, it's like if they had read our book, even if they had not cited, The Economist article cites the three major places that they want to see in terms of growth since the end of the pandemic, urban places: Miami, Singapore, and Dubai, in that line, with the real house prices increasing the most in Miami, 37% since 2019, most, and the office vacancy rate being one of the lowest. So that's an article interesting to jive in, because they did not know, and we did not do that research, but it came out exactly in terms of the same conclusions that we are in. That is, we are in Miami for all that reason, living we call it emerging global city, but it's already global. It is global in its regional sphere, and that is, I think, generally, and in one of the chapters of the book that is in terms of the role of all of this shows that the image of Miami is very clear in the minds of the business classes and the bankers throughout the region. It is actually the center. It started for exporting trucks and equipment for the sugar industry, but now basically it is exporting. It is exporting not only goods but also ideas and financial instruments.
One of the things,
Sorry,
go ahead, Ariel.
Jim, I wanted to expand on the health sector because this is tremendously important. A couple of important things. Alejandro just mentioned that one of the advantages of going to Miami to receive medical treatment is that you will find doctors, nurses, health professionals who speak Spanish or Portuguese or Haitian Creole, and that's important. But it goes beyond that. Of course, that it's connected to what we were talking about earlier, that it's easy to fly to Miami, easy to get there, and all those are very important things. But there is a lot of research that shows that the cultural aspect in the health sector, in the treatment of illnesses, is absolutely crucial. So it's not only speaking your language, but it's understanding your culture. In terms of taking care of people's health, well-being is an absolutely crucial element, and so this is something that Miami should leverage a lot more, and use a lot of these actual research to translate in ways that people can understand it, to position itself as a leading center for medical treatment. That's one element. The second one is that we should not forget that when you talk about the health district, there is the aspect of research, and research is tremendously important because it is what generates new patents, new medications, etc., etc. The pharma business, as we know, is multi-billion-dollar industry, and the University of Miami is a leader in that sense, and that is another element that has been changing in Miami in the last few decades. It is important, and let me make this final comment, that, for example, recently the University of Miami has been invited to join the American Association of Universities. This is a premier group that brings together all the best universities in the United States that are leaders in research. This is extraordinary news, not only for the University of Miami, but for Miami. It's a game changer.
100%. It's always been one of the best kept secrets that we graduate more people down here with college degrees than most anybody else. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to ask if you could stay for another short segment because I'm going to talk about the sustainability of Miami as a global city, because a lot of the people moved here and a lot of the tech and a lot of the entrepreneurs started when it was the Lehman Brothers crash and Miami was really cheap to live in. Now Miami, we mentioned it, is the most expensive. Gosh, I can't believe I'm about to say this. One of the most, if not the most expensive city in the world to live in. I personally have been subjected to it. And we've got that. And we've also got the political pressure of the anti-immigration dialogue. And I want to talk about that because we've talked about what a welcoming and positive place Miami has been. And it seems like that may be changing. Mr. Mendoza. You always put my house up in that last thing, Mr. Mendoza. I love it when I see that. That's why the people are moving to Miami, because they want to have a lifestyle like that. And I lead that lifestyle. And my wife and her uncle, Felix Ryler, they started the whole process. Hey, I want to thank our friends at Warren Henry for being sponsors for well over a decade. We've gotten cars there for, a long, long time, generations, I would have to say. We originally bought cars from Warren. Now we buy them from Larry. It's tremendous. Warren's the dad, Larry's the son. And my mom used to buy them from the grandfather, Mr. Zinn as well. So, and I know Robert there, since high school. So we love Warren Henry. We love being part of the Warren Henry family. When you're looking to buy or lease a car, or if you want to export one to Latin America, give our friends at Warren Henry a call. Range Rover, Land Rover, Range Rover, Infiniti, Jaguar, and Lincoln up at 151st and Biscayne, close enough to get it to the airport in either Fort Lauderdale or Miami, or to the port of Miami. They've also got a great Audi store up in Gainesville. They've got a store in Key West that sells all the great nameplates. South Dade, they have a Land Rover, Range Rover store. They're all great cars. They all come with the Warren Henry Advantage, which is a tremendous list of services that you get when you buy the Warren Henry automotive product. You get, of course, the service loaner if you need one for free. Maytel set you up for that. If you lose your keys, they'll help you replace them. If you park real close to the curb like I do, that you can scrape up your car, they'll help you polish up your rims. They'll guarantee you're getting the best price on your trade-in. They'll guarantee you're getting the best price on your new or leased car. They'll guarantee that you'll love your car. If you don't, you can turn it back within 3 days. Nobody ever does, because they love their cars. So join me, my beautiful wife, Vivian, the niece of Dr. Ryler, my mom, lots and lots of my friends and clients. We're all members of the Warren Henry family. You should be too. Always the best price, always the best service, always Warren Henry. Well, I want to remind everybody that I do international business. I want to thank Lisa Paley for bringing our two international business executives here, Ariel and Alejandro. Alejandro had another commitment, but we're going to have one more segment with Ariel. We'll talk about how a city like Miami stays on top now that we are on top. Isn't that great to say? I love saying that. Reach out to me and do business with people from all over the world, Latin America, Europe, Asia, everywhere. We're helping them tokenize their real estate. We're helping them do investments here directly in the United States. I've got people that do condos, apartments, hotels, retail, office, industrial. We're working with them all. We bring them great capital, both debt and equity, mezz, pref, everything. So give me a call. Reach out to me. Fix and flip, hard money loans. We've got it all, even first mortgages on residential units. So if you need some help, my specialty is that I self-actualize by helping other people achieve their dreams and goals. I do that by solving their problems and helping bring them peace of mind. And remember, whenever you call me, it's always all about you.
Welcome back to Freed on Business. Connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Jim Freed or at Freed on Business, and on Instagram at Jim Freed1. Now, back to your host, Jim Freed.
I want to thank Lisa Paley for setting us up with Alejandro Portes and with Ariel as well. I know that Alejandro had a prior commitment. He was good enough to extend his time with us for one more segment. We've got Ariel left. Ariel, welcome. I know that I left us hanging. What's the future look like? We've got the immigration and political pressures going here in Miami. We've got the cost of living, which made Miami go from a really inexpensive U.S. city to, I guess we're still an inexpensive international city, but the cost of living is really affecting the people that live here and perform the services for the people that come here. What does the future of Miami look like, and how can Miami stay on top, Alejandro? That's an easy one. You've got 5 minutes.
So Jim, it's going to be a challenge. The city faces important challenges. Let me start with the the two that you mentioned. When you talk about the cost of living in Miami real estate, what we are talking about there is two things. One is talent. A city needs to continue to recruit global talent all the time and retain its talent. And that is talent at the highest levels of education and also in all the areas that provide support services. That is going to be a challenge. A second aspect that is very important is inequality. Miami is a very unequal city, and that creates lots of issues for a city that really need to be addressed. One that is very important, that is another challenge for the city, is transportation. This has to do with urban design. As you know, it is becoming very, very difficult to move from one area to another. In Miami, traffic is just insane, and public transportation is not responding to the needs of such a number of residents. And so this is something that requires really, really important action on the part of the leadership because it is absolutely crucial. The other element that we haven't mentioned is climate change. The rising waters, and as we know, the expectation is that large parts of the city are going to be underwater in 20 years or less than that. And so we discussed that that's a topic for an entire show. It's very complicated, but it is absolutely crucial for Miami to address that challenge, and that requires a number of actions. So we have inequality, we have attraction and retention of global talent, we have climate change and its impact on the environment, we have transportation. These are very, very important challenges that affect the sustainability of the city and the capacity of the city to stay on top.
I 100% agree with you. Again, I'm in commercial real estate. I specialize in urban transactions, land deals. I've been working on some of the sites that are at the metro stations for 20 years. It's only now that they're really being developed. And the real question is how to develop these nodes of transportation in a way that they help the community. You're seeing massive retail centers being built on the train station, so people can just go, and it's like actually a neighborhood state. The rail system has become a neighborhood, and the real issue is I call it the horizontal transportation, the 1 mile off of that, and how are you going to get there? The office buildings don't have a place for the people to shower, so it's very difficult to take public transportation into this city. Ariel, I wanted to thank you. I wanted to thank Alejandro, but he left, so please thank Alejandro when you leave. I want to give you another chance to plug the book. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so talk about the book and where people can get it.
So again, the book is Emerging Global Cities. It is published by Columbia University Press. People can easily get it through the Columbia site, or of course through Amazon or any of the other platforms. And as you mentioned, there are still a few copies at Books and Books that are autographed, and so I encourage people, if they are going to be around in Coral Gables, to stop by and get the few copies that are there left. The book is selling very well, not only in the United States, but around the world. It's fascinating that because of my job, I literally go around the world everywhere, and I always, in the last couple of months, I'm finding time to present the book, and the reception is just extraordinary because going back to what we were discussing earlier, aspiration. Everybody wants to be a great city, and Miami is a big model like Dubai and Singapore. And so around the world, cities want to be like these three cities. And so people are really, really interested in this topic. So the book is a good read. It's a very interesting read.
Well, I know that just like your other Argentinian compatriots, you can't wait till the end of July when your favorite son starts playing down here. When you come down for one of those games, let's get together and go. I also want to, I'm going to reach out through Lisa to you and to Alejandro. I'd love to have a follow up after the summer when some of the things shake out, and we can talk about what's been happening and create some great content that we can get to some of the thought leaders and people that shape not only the city but its policies. I want to thank Lisa Paley for bringing Ariel and Alejandro to our show. I want to thank them for participating. I want to thank our sponsors, Warren Henry Automotive and the University of Florida Center for Real Estate Studies. I'm going to ask Ariel to stay on through the close so we can talk for a second in the green room. I want to thank Mr. Reagan Mendoza for always making me look good. I want to thank our sponsors for well over a decade. Like I said, the Warren Henry Automotive. I'll be here. We drop a new podcast every Wednesday at noon. We try to focus on things that are interesting to you and to our to me. So email me if you got something you want to hear. I want to remind everybody my personal brand is that I self-actualize by helping other people achieve their dreams and goals. I do that by helping them solve problems and bringing them peace of mind and hopefully helping them have a more sustainable city. I want to remind everybody that the person that wants to do something finds a way. The other finds an excuse. Now go out there and make it happen. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Again, thank you to Ariel and Lisa Paley and Alejandro for today's tremendous show that I'm going to make sure everybody gets directly. I'm going to send it to all of them. Mr. Mendoza, it's time for your magic one more time.